Welcome to People Purpose Impact, a show born out of the desire to tell stories about people and share ideas that not only sparks conversation but inspires action. I'm your host, Melissa Mahler, and my guest today is an author, brother in Christ, former world's fastest man, a former NFL player, and my dear friend, Tyree Washington. Hello, Tyree, and welcome to People Purpose Impact.
Thank you so much, Melissa. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be able to, as always, to share my story.
Yes, and it's quite a story. It really is. And Tyree, there's so much to talk about today, but I wanted to start in the beginning because I believe it's the backdrop for the message that you're sharing now, both in your speaking and the work that you do in your book. And your life story is really one of resilience. And it began before you were born. And I know that you were born into a single family household, but there were some other things that were challenges at that time. And I don't know if you would just start off by sharing a little bit about the really beginning of Tyree Washington in this world.
Yes, most definitely. So we're going to go back in time, of course. And I was born in Riverside, California. My mother, my grandmother raised me. And when when I was born, I went through a lot. I went through a lot of health. I should say, when I was born, I didn't come from a great. My mother wasn't in a great environment, and there was a lot of there's a lot of mental issues that she was dealing with, and my mother hid the pregnancy for 9 months, and my grandmother she kind of knew something was wrong, but like they knew my mother was pregnant, but she went the whole 9 months, and I was born with no problems. But then I started developing issues with my respiratory, with my lungs, which I ended up being diagnosed with asthma, and I struggled with asthma for pretty much when I was a youngster for a great part of my life, and I was in and out of the hospital. I mean, I was in the hospital so much that I felt like I had a room within the house. I had a room in the hospital with my name on it, but the doctors told my mother that I would never be able to play sports, and because I was just so sick, and as when I had this conversation, like, many years ago, my mother, my grandmothers, they didn't want to buy into the doctors back then telling me that I couldn't do sports because they felt that I could be a normal kid, playing outside and enjoying, the physical activities, and I got involved in sports, and me playing sports was a means of helping me to gain that confidence, that courage, and to be able to strengthen my lungs. But there was a challenging part to that is when as I was going to play football and running track, I would have asthma attacks. I would go to the hospital, and they called CPS on my mother because they said it was a form of child abuse because I was in and out of the hospital.
I've read and we've talked a little bit that you had to, kind of make your way a little bit to help provide or care for your sister and yourself. And while you never joined a gang, you were on the fringes of certain things. And that was a little step that I think it's important to talk about because it was something that you had to walk away from. And part of what I see in your story is that you make decisions to try to do better and to do the right thing.
Yeah, so I mean, you never know what type of family when you come into this world. You never know who your mother's going to be, your father, what type of environment you're going to live in. You're going to live in, and for me, I was in this. I grew up in this apartment complex called Montgomery Village. We nicknamed it the Ville because it was very hostile. It was a lot of gangs, drugs, prostitution. It was just a lot of poverty, people getting beat up, murder, and for me, it was very tough because that was my norm. And my mother, she did not work, so we were on welfare. She was on disability, and so it was like every year, like getting ready to start school, I had to ask my mother, hey, can we buy school clothes? She was like, I don't have the money, and so I would at a young age, around 11 years old, I went to go get a job, and had a job doing landscaping, and I used to sweep up Howard's Rental, and sweep this parking lot at Howard's Rental, and that was I did that. I did that for quite a few months, and before I started school. And I remember when it was all said and done, I collected my got my money from pretty much my bosses, and I gave it to my mom, and she just had like her eyes just filled up with tears because she just couldn't believe that I went out and earned this money for my school clothes because she couldn't because she was unable to work, and we just didn't have the final means just to be able to afford anything. But I mean you know, as far as like with the gangs and the drugs and all the murders and the beatings that were around me, I dabbled in the gangs a little bit, and I was just looking for that. I was looking for that protection. I was looking for to feel have this self worth and I was looking for a father figure because I never had a father in my life, and I grew around a lot of older individuals when I was young, but I remember this gang member telling his name was Tyrone, and he found out that I was really good in sports, and he said the streets are not for you. You need to go focus on your sports, and that was like that was one of the best things that best advice that he ever gave me was to focus on my sports instead of being on the streets because back then in the early 80s you know if a kid was involved in gangs and you're living in the projects and you're involved in a lot of mischief. I mean, you would be lucky to reach your 16th birthday. I mean, most kids back then they end up getting killed, going to juvenile detention facilities, or they were just on the street selling drugs, and their life was just pretty much wither away. But that helped that getting that advice and that push and to for me to focus on sports. And my mother was extremely happy because I was a fighter. I used to fight every day. I had to go. She would have to go to school and sit in class with me, so I wouldn't fight.
Yeah.
And, and so it was a relief for her because I could do something to basically pour out my aggression, but also to I could be a part of a team and
Mhm.
this positive family atmosphere to learn about responsibility, to be discipline and unity and self worth and value because I didn't really value my life back then.
Right. And then that's something that is continued throughout your whole career is that you continue to find value in yourself and doing the right thing. But how did you make this transition from, a poor kid basically in an environment that's hostile to grow up in, with the gangs and the violence and the poverty, to really just an insane, crazy, well celebrated career in sports? Why don't you take us a little bit into how you started that journey? And let's brag a little bit, Tyree. You've got some pretty amazing accomplishments, and let's talk about them.
Well, I had this friend in middle school. His name was Jason, and I would go to. He lived in this middle class neighborhood, and I was living in the ghetto. But for whatever reason, he liked me. We befriended each other. He was a very smart kid, and he would help me pretty much tutor me with my schoolwork, and I would help him athletically. So it was that kind of like a barter system. We would help each other, and he would invite me over to his home. And I remember I didn't even know what a pantry was, and he was like, you can come over my home and you can go in the pantry, eat whatever you want. And I saw this beautiful table. I saw like how his mom and dad were together. They had this family unity, and I thought that was awesome. I was like, and so just by me observing that and seeing, I was like, this is what I want. This is what I want in my life. And so that was another one of my pushes, one of my motivators to where I was like, I want a house, I want to have a family, and I want to get out of the ghetto, and I want to help I want to get myself out of the ghetto, I want to get my mom, my sisters out of the ghetto, and I want us to be an environment where we're not hearing gunshots, we're not seeing people sell drugs, there's no prostitution, there's no gangs, there's not SWAT just coming in and out of people's apartments, and not seeing yellow tape and chalk line, all this stuff. So that made me work harder on the football field, made me work harder on the track to where even in school because I wasn't doing good in school
Mm.
back then during my middle school years, and I just flipped everything. everything just flipped. But another pivotal moment in my life is I had this football coach, and I was constantly fighting, and and I wanted to be like Walter Payton and Eric Dickerson, because I looked up to those two individuals in the NFL. And he told me, he heard about me fighting. He said, "Well, you'll never be able to go to the NFL," because and that was my goal, to go to the
Mm,
NFL. And I remember as being like this tough kid, and I'm like, nothing could phase me. I'm just rock hard. You can't tell me what to do. I cried. I cried, and he like it's like he just pierced my heart, pierced my soul, and that was another significant moment in my life to where it's like I had Jason, just observing his home, and then my football coach telling me that I'm never going to go to the NFL, and I had to pretty much do this diagnostic check and the self evaluation that Ty, if you continue to live your life this way, you're going to be like any other kid on the street. You're going to be the individual that's going to be the victim, blaming everybody else for your problems. When in actuality, you look in the mirror like you are the problem. So I literally went through that diagnostic check, and I started changing everything about myself. I started doing better in school. I remember I got in one fight, and then I on my seventh grade, and then after that it was over with, and I became an honor roll student, and athletically I just kept elevating in football and in track, and then and I got and then I just attached myself to individuals that were doing good, it just in life in general, is like that just manifested to more individuals coming into my life that were positive, that were encouraging, that were loving, that weren't yes people, that were speaking life into me, that lifted me
mm.
up. And that's what just helped me to get to the point to where I'm in today, because I still do the same thing. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
change the blueprint.
Well, I think, Tyree, that's really a point to highlight here is that by showing love, by having an example of what a family that cares for each other, having that coach step up and really give you some truth. And, those are pivotal moments that really can change the trajectory for youth. And I think that's a huge part about what you're doing now and your inspiration and how you speak to youth. Um, as you move forward in your career, you talked about football, but you're really known for your track performance. And why don't you talk about how you transitioned to that and some of the people that supported you along the way?
Yes, I started running track when I was around probably 11, 12 years old. And truth be told, I did it like most football players, just to get in shape. But being very competitive as I am, and back then and even now,
I just
I
know you as
uh,
my friend, Tyree. I can't think of you being my competitor, but that'd be scary.
it's like, well, on the athletic realm, I'm competitive, and so I I just wanted just to get better in football, but I was excelling in track as well. And despite being asthmatic, a lot of people were always shocked. You have asthma, and I'm like, yes, I've had my asthma my whole life, and I struggle with it. But but I when I enrolled in high school, I was a two-sport athlete. I was in football and track, and I won a state championship while at Lost High School in Riverside, California, and I became an all-state cornerback in football. And then I ended up getting heavily recruited all over the country for football, and I mean I was recruited for track, but my focus was always to go, and my goal was to go to the NFL. That's always been the prized possession for me. But it's just weird how God works. Is that
Mm,
what I what even though it's like football was everything, it was like he had this plan for me. Like, no, you're gonna take a little detour and you're gonna go run track. And I didn't really want to run track, but then I met Pops. I met Pops Blackman Ehem, who passed away about over 3.5 years ago, and he was the one that was like to help me to catapult my track and field career to become this world champion, the fastest man in the world. And and he saw something in me that I didn't see, and it was once again, it was like, to me, God was putting the right people in my life at the right time. I mean, God's timing is always amazing, right? It's
mhm,
it's, it's always it's always perfect, and and I just became submissive to that, even though I had this hesitation, and I was like, no, well, I don't want to run track. I want to play football. I remember years ago, Pops was in 1996, the fall. He says, well, why don't you just try it out? Just try it out, see how it works out. And and let's just go from there. But I end up just breaking everything: national records, state records, beat Michael Johnson my first race appearance, winning the national championship, I mean, winning a bronze medal at the 1997 World Championships in Athens, Greece. But I had that itch. As
Yeah.
well as I told USA Today, ESPN, and they're like, "I'm going to go play football." They're like, "Ty, you're crazy. Have you looked at your resume up to this point? You're doing fabulous." And I'm like, nope, I'm gonna go play football. That's what I want to do. And I signed with the San Diego Chargers. And I could have signed with the New York Giants. I could the Cardinals. I worked out with Green Bay, but San Diego was closer. San Diego was a spot because it was closer to my son,
Yeah.
who was young in age, and it was a blessing. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's there now. Who is my quarterback, and he's the head coach of the Chargers. Junior Seau, the late Junior Seau, played with
Yeah.
him, and Rodney Harrison, and I mean Terrence Shaw. I mean, there's so many
What a
great.
great group of guys you played with too.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. It was. I mean, it was a great group of individuals,
Mhm.
and it was. I mean, it was short lived. I got hurt, and I got traded to the Raiders, but then I think that's another significant point in my life, huge, is because when I got hurt and I tried to come back, I ended up getting the Chargers waived me. I was waiting to go to another NFL team because obviously I'm on waivers,
Mhm.
and I was living in Carmel Mountain. I was going to this workout center called Frogs Gym, and I remember I had this dream for an entire year that I was getting shot in the back. Right,
Mhm.
so I was like, I'm gonna die. Like I was like, man, something's gonna come back. It's gonna like a boomerang. I'm gonna get killed, maybe for the things I've done in my past, and and not that I killed anybody or anything like that, but just being very mischievous, all the fighting or something. Maybe someone wanted to come back and retaliate. That was my thoughts.
Mhm.
And there were two gentlemen in the weight room, and they were talking. And I had no idea. One of them was a pastor. His name was Jim Fulcher. And as soon as I heard pastor, I was like, I pretty much just like jumped at him, like, hey, I need to get baptized. You're a pastor. I need to get baptized because I'm gonna die, and I want to be right with God. And he was just like, hey, hold on, son. And he was like, what's your name? I gave my name, and he said, hey, would you like to study the Bible? Of course, I want to study the Bible, but I really didn't. I just wanted just to get baptized, and that was it.
Right, end this
And so,
dream and protect
yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
I just wanted to protect myself, and so I studied the Bible with him. I got baptized, and I never had that dream ever since. It was gone. It was
Wow.
it was it
Wow.
was it was amazing, and I had this peace that came over me, like you don't have to fear anything anymore, and I was just like living in fear, pretty much.
Tyree, what year was that? About.
That was 1999. That was like right after the Chargers waived me.
Wow.
Yes, it happened. And so I was supposed to, and I had already signed with the Raiders. A lot of people don't know that. I had that I was getting ready to, the waiver. I worked out for the Raiders, Oakland Raiders. Dr. Harold Daniels is my agent. He's like, hey, you're going to go to Oakland. You're going to be on the team. But I didn't go because I was like, I need to get my life right with God. And then also too, I was young into my marriage, and I was like, I need to, me and my wife at the time, we needed to strengthen our marriage and have a relationship with God. We had to have a godly foundation, not the worldly one. And so that was another factor of why I didn't go to Oakland. But once again, it all goes back to God's timing is perfect. And where He's going to place you. To be able to get for you to get your life right with Him is always going to be the right place. And so it really changed my life, and I needed it desperately at that point in time. I really did.
Well, it's amazing. One of the things that I like to ask people is what was their Damascus moment? When did they really come to have a relationship with God? And it sounds like yours was in a gym talking to a pastor that changed your life.
Yeah, like who would I mean? I always think back, like who would have thought that I would have met Jim Fulcher in the gym, and he was a pastor of San Diego Church of Christ, and he was the one that was, and him and Winslow Garnier, because that was another individual I studied with, kind of associate pastor, and just studying the Bible with them and just pouring my heart out to them as far as the things I've done in my life, and just asking God just for forgiveness, and I wanted to spend, because I want to spend eternity in heaven with Him, because I know this world is going to pass away and everything that we have is temporary. It's like mist. And so I was always yearning to get my life right with God. Even when I was in high school, I used to watch this Pastor Frederick Casey Price, because I just had this fear of like, man, what if my life was not right with God? Even though I wasn't in my Bible every day, I wasn't really going to church. I would just watch him. And it was like God was like systematically planting those seeds with certain individuals for me to come to Him, and it was like that was my calling. Like
Mhm.
it's like obviously God knows me better than I know myself,
Yeah.
and he knew that I could make a huge impact in this world and use my platforms to help people to bring their life to him. And so that's what I continue to do. And sometimes I get frustrated. I do get on myself because I may be in the grocery store, I may be out training or wherever I'm at, and I know I should initiate and say something to the individual, but I know God is a forgiving God, and He knows our heart, and I just
Yeah.
keep on fighting that good fight and just do the best I can.
Yeah, I think two things you said, Tyree. One, it's those seeds, like people activate other things in people that they might not even realize. I always say you don't really know what's going on in that person's head, and it's so easy just to smile, say hello, acknowledge somebody on the street, in the elevator, and sometimes it's just that small moment that changes the trajectory of that person. Those seeds are activated, and then we get to activate other people and help support them. One of the things I wanted to ask you too is in the timing of this transition. So you started to move into having a relationship with God and understanding our place and your purpose, which is an amazing thing. And as you know, the focus of the show is really about all those things and helping people, which I believe is part of my calling, is to help realize and achieve their purpose. That doesn't mean that life is easy and that we're going to continue to be tested and challenged. And it's how we rise and work through those situations. And I think when you went to the World Champions in 2003, you had great moments of glory, and then you had to deal with some challenges. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that and how you navigated through that situation.
Yeah, well, 2002 was leading up to the 2003 Outdoor World Championships in track and field. That was it was tough because in July of 2002 I tried to commit suicide because my sister 2 years prior, her and her boyfriend brutally killed my niece, and that was a month before the Olympic trials, and I was projected to go. Me and Michael Johnson were projected to go 1-2 in the Sydney. We were going to make the Olympic trials team, the Olympic team, go to Sydney, and either he wins a gold or he wins a gold, I win a silver, or vice versa. But that never happened, and the reason why it didn't happen is because when she killed my niece, and I got wind of it, it was. It was extremely tough because being an asthmatic, one thing that could bring on an asthma attack is stress,
Mm.
and I've handled stress very well in my life and be able to just to bounce off me and not really phase me. I can continue on and just do my job. But that considering I was very close to my sister, it hit me really hard, and I developed a respiratory infection. And my doctors tried to get rid of it by giving me medication. It didn't work. So when I went to the Olympic trials, the first round I got knocked out. I mean, I can run. If anybody knows the 400 meters, and I mean, I can run 46 seconds in my sleep, and I struggled to run that, so I was out. And so 2 years later, and this is in 2000 at the Olympic trials, 2 years later in July, I was sharing, is that I tried to commit suicide, and then I bounced back from that. I was like, hey, I'm gonna get myself together,
Mhm.
and and then I started training with Pops, and and then in 2003, I went undefeated off of being because I left the sport for 18 months.
Wow.
So
I
I
didn't know
went in,
that. Wow.
went in hiatus because I was just devastated. But in my hiatus, I actually went to go work for the Riverside Probation Department. So I was in law enforcement. So I am former law enforcement, and I worked with juveniles, with teen murderers, gang members, kids that carjacked, kids that burned down. They were pyromaniacs. So that was like my time away. But I had that itch, like I'm going to go back to run track. And when I decided to leave the probation and to focus on running track again, I had an amazing training camp, and in 2003 I won two world titles, two national titles, Um, and I went undefeated, and I was the fastest 400 meter around the world. Everybody was shocked because they're like, "Well, how do you leave the sport for 18 months and you come back and you dominate the best quarter milers in the world?" And so it was very bittersweet because I didn't when I left track and field, I didn't love it anymore. I was hurt. I was hurt because my niece was gone. I felt that I could have done more to stop it. Basically, I was trying to play God, and I'm not God. And and I was hurt because of my sister because I was very close to her because my sister wasn't she wasn't on everybody when you hear somebody murdering someone you think, oh, they're on drugs, they were in gangs, they're getting out of jail. My sister was none of that. She got with an individual that didn't make good decisions, and they both made a horrific decision by killing my niece, and it ripped through our family because everywhere I went, it was in the paper, it was on the news, and since they know my sister, since obviously I'm connected to my sister,
Mm.
it was my name was plastered everywhere because of that. So
Wow.
um,
Did
that was
you
tough.
I can't imagine all the stuff that you were going through and then having to deal with this loss of your niece and also this break in the relationship with your sister and not even to be able to deal with that privately. As you said, it was very public and you were a public figure at that time too. Um, what was your relationship with God through that process?
My relationship with God was okay. Like, I'm gonna be honest, it was okay, but it was not where I wanted it to be because obviously when you're dealing with those mental health issues back then, I try to hide it. I
Mhm.
try to do everything in my power to hide it because mental health was not something that you just talk about that was open and honest. It was like that big elephant in the room. So I was very depressed. I had suicidal ideations. I thought about taking my life. I don't know how many times. Like just driving to San Diego, driving. I was as I'm driving to San Diego on the 15 freeway. And there's this huge, like this pretty much this cliff. I was like, I'm just gonna drive my truck off the cliff, and that's just gonna be it. Like, I'm literally imagining this because I was in so much pain, but in the midst of all in the midst of me trying to kill myself in my garage because I tried to
Mm.
hang myself,
Wow.
there was I did think about God in that moment in the midst of that darkness. I thought about God. I thought about my son, and and my ex-wife. She called law enforcement. That was a huge ordeal in my house. Cops swarmed my house, and but they were very loving and caring towards me, and they knew that I was going through a bad patch in my life. But my church is having people in my church pray for me. Have my ex-wife, my wife pray for me, and I prayed as well. Like I prayed, and so it was without God, I would not be here. That's just that's His grace. I mean, and that He gave me to where He once again He put the right people in my life at the right time to be able to take care of me when I was in my darkest moments in life, and I was down for the count. I didn't know if I was going to get back up, but every time it's like every time I was able to just pull myself back up and have these individuals help pull me back up. So prayer is very powerful. It's extremely powerful, and I truly believe when you pray for something, it's going to happen. It may not happen like right away when you want it to happen, but it's going to happen. And God made sure that I was going to be taken care of.
Well, Tyree, I know that we're doing audio today, not video, but I'm definitely tearing up, and that your story is so moving, and that you've continued to persevere through so many different circumstances and really betrayal that you've had to deal with is so close to your heart. And I think if I'm remembering dates correctly, having the timing of this that you're dealing with your sister and your niece and your own personal struggles that this brought on, you also were at the top of the game for the 400 meter, and you had another situation of betrayal with one of your best friends. And I don't know if you could share a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so I mean, no, definitely the Balco scandal, as it's known by. is the Balco scandal ripped through many, many sports, track and field, where it all started. It went from football to baseball. But what happened to me is when you're on a relay team, you expect everyone to have this integrity that they're not going to put anything in their body that's going to cause them to test positive for any performance enhancing drugs. So when the Balco scandal just rocked the world and Marion Jones was implicated, you had Tim Montgomery, you had all these different athletes, and they're taking this jug called the Clear because the athletes were running really fast, they're breaking all these records. I'm just like, there was rumors at the World Championship that my teammate who will beat me at the World Championships, Jerome, that he had tested positive in 1999, and possibly there may be some issues. He might be doping in 2003, um, and this was around 2009. So I had already retired, and I'm thinking like, there's just no way that Jerome, because Jerome, like I love him, and he was like, we were two athletes that roommated together overseas. We ran the same event, and usually that doesn't happen because you're putting pretty much two cage lions together, and they're just going to go at it. We weren't like that. We just was very cool about it. We would just go out there, take care of business, win our money, and be on our way. And so when the feds came in and they did their investigation, and you have the United States Anti-Doping Agency, the World Anti-Doping Agency, you have all these entities involved, and then I get then on AP Wire, they say, well, Jerome Young admitted to testing positive. It just really broke my heart. And then there was Antonio Pettigrew. He was implicated as well in the Balco scandal. And unfortunately, Antonio, he before he left his house many years ago, he kissed his wife and he committed suicide. And because of just the embarrassment and of what happened. And the sad part about it, Melissa, honestly, is that these athletes didn't need to use steroids. They
Mhm.
were already phenomenal athletes, and they were doing amazing things, and they could have ended out their career with medals and money, and they still would have they would have became more famous, but because of greed, right? Greed is always that common denominator that always gets people. They always want more and more, and because of that, because of their bad decision, not to say they're bad people, because we all, I mean, they just made a bad decision, is that it was basically a ripple effect. And I lost 4 world championship gold medals in my world record. And that was tough because I didn't do anything wrong. But I was a part of this team. And I remember as I was fighting to get my world championship gold medal back, trying to get my money, the U.S. International Federation was like, well, we want the gold medal back. And I was like, you can have it back. You can have all of it back. And everybody was shocked that I didn't fight them. I wasn't going to go on a talk. I wasn't going to go to Oprah. I wasn't going to do all these podcasts and try to explain, why I should keep my world record, why I should keep my gold medals. The medals were tainted, and I was happy to give them up, but it was also sad because when you work so hard for something and you have a goal, and to find out that someone in your team did not do it the right way, so now they're going to strip you of that medal, and it's going to be in all the papers. It's going to be on ESPN and everywhere. It's a tough pill to swallow for anyone, even though I did not do anything wrong. I mean, the athletes that were doping, they felt the wrath of it, but also to the athletes that were not doping, like myself, like I felt the wrath of that, as well as Michael Johnson. But there's no athlete in history that has lost that many gold medals and a world record, and they were a clean athlete, and that's what really broke my heart because I'm like, man, this really sucks because uh, I didn't do anything wrong. Like I did it the right way, and I was in and out of the hospital during these times of winning these medals that I wasn't sharing this information to anyone, and when I would get to a world championships or whatever it may be, I'm giving my all. I'm pouring my all, my heart, my soul, my blood, sweat, and tears, and just trying to just make sure I won't make sure that my our country is on top. Just
Right.
doing my part.
That had to be hard though, Tyree, not only to have the medals and all the accolades that go with that stripped from you. It was something that you've been working for really your whole life, and to be tainted in that way, people always go, "Hey, where there's smoke, there's fire," and this was your
Yes.
roommate. So you probably had to not only suffer these consequences, but I can imagine just how the world is. People are like, well, how do you know Tyree really didn't do something? He must have just got lucky. So you're trying to, handle this with as much grace as possible. But I'm sure people looked at you just a little different along the way
Well,
too.
well, they did. I mean, that's unfortunate part with track and field is that there is a black eye and with the sport because and I was a big Marion Jones fan and I still am because I believe that the thing that she what she's done in high school and what she did without the drugs it was amazing. She didn't need it, but when Marion Jones went on national television and she said that she's taken so many drug tests and they all came back negative. That just made the general public look at every other athlete. Well, you could take 1,000 drug tests and they can come back negative, but that doesn't mean that's really not a good indicator that you were still not doping. And so it's like for every athlete, you're always having this almost kind of like this little check mark by your name that well there probably was a possibility that you were doping, but that was not my focus. To me, that's a personal debate with whoever,
Hmm.
uh, and for me was to how do I flip it? How do I turn this bad situation into something good? And what I did was I started educating kids about PEDs and the effects of performance enhancing drugs and how it can people talk about like they can lose their accolades, but you can lose your life
Mm.
from this stuff. Like you can die from using performance enhancing drugs, and it's not worth it. And I would share with the kids, just be happy if you get last place, second, third place, fourth place, whatever it may be. If you gave it your all, be happy with that. You can sleep at night knowing that you've done it the right way, and I can sleep at night knowing that I did it the right way. I may have not broken an individual world record, or I may not have won more gold medals, but the accomplishments that I have, I know that I've done it the right way, and I can sleep peacefully at night, and I can continue to share my story with conviction to know that everything is very very truthful, and because of that situation, I lost millions of dollars. No one cares about second place. They don't care.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm just being honest. No one really cares about second place. So that's another thing is that I speak for all athletes that have lost medals because someone else was doping and they missed their opportunity to be on the podium. If they're a gold medalist, is that they you can never go back in time. There's no reset. There's no redo button, and that you can be able to take those pictures, being the gold medal. I can never do that. I can never go back in 2003, stand on the podium, receive my gold medal, and be able to enjoy the benefits that comes along with it, the prize money, the contract money. I mean, just more notoriety to be able to help my family. That's gone. I mean, just the accolades, right? It's our history. So the best thing that I can do, and the most powerful thing I can do, is to educate people.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because you're a big advocate and supporter of youth, and your book, Against All Odds, the story of a world champion who turned his trauma into triumph. We've touched on some of the trauma, but you really have risen and have just evolved into this amazing advocate in the community of faith, of supporting youth, and you're living this. You're not just speaking it. You've talked a little bit about your message to them. What is it that resonates with the kids that you speak with about your story? And how do you see youth today and their challenges as compared to, youth when we were growing up?
We didn't have the technology that they had back then. I mean, we don't have the social media, and a lot of these kids they compare their life even more to just other other kids all over the world. And there's a saying that thief is the comparison of joy. And I hope I'm saying that right. If like, yeah, I think, yeah, thief is a comparison of joy. And yeah, I hope I'm saying that right. I think because I always say this all the time.
I think it's the stealer of joy, but we'll figure
Yeah,
that
no, no, actually,
out.
it's a comparison is a thief of joy. That's what it is right there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and so I see kids constantly, comparing themselves to someone else that they don't even know their story. What they, that they don't know about they don't know about the things that they have gone through to get to a point to where they're at, and I think that's the downside for us. We didn't have that back then. Yeah, we compared ourselves to other kids in school and probably looked at the magazines and TVs, but now it's even magnified. It's on steroids, and so you see a lot more kids that have depression, anxiety, the suicidal ideation has increased, alcoholism, recreational drugs, and the kids, they seem hopeless. And this goes for adults as well, because adults, they do the same thing.
Mm,
They play the comparison game, and they shouldn't. And so for me, I just tell people just to be you, be yourself. It's okay to be you. Like it's you can't please everybody. We there's 8 billion people on the planet. If somebody doesn't like you, then there's somebody else that will like who you are. They'll like the way you talk. They'll like the way you dress. They'll like how you work or whatever it may be. And so I just encourage them just to continue to to have value for their life,
mm,
because I see that a lot of them do not have value for their life. They just do whatever. They're very reckless. We have a check-in day and we have a check-out day. Everybody, you have a born date, and there's a death date, right? But a lot of times people make choices and they speed up that death date, right? And I see that a lot with these youngsters. The decision making that they're doing is that they don't really, like I said, value their life, and they will get in a car and someone was drinking, and then you have three teenagers that wrap their car around the pole and they're gone, and that's it. My buddy's a firefighter in San Diego, and he tells me crazy stories, and it's very sad. And so what I do is I try to speak life into these kids. I try to speak life into people. Is my situation? Yes, I've been through a lot of things. I've been through a lot in my life, and I know that there's a lot of people out in the world that have gone through more than I have gone through. And the key to overcoming the trauma, the depression, the anxiety. One of them is that when you see other people like myself, and there's many others, and you can read about them in books, there's podcasts, there's documentaries, there's movies. I think people need to cling to that. They need to say, listen, this is what I'm going through in my life right now. And if it's my mother was she was beat by her boyfriend for many many years, but there's women out in the world that have been in abusive relationships, and they have overcome that abusive relationship and not being the victim anymore. They are like that. They have become that victor, and and they and to become very successful in their life. That's who women, abusive women, have to look, that are going, they're in their situation. They have to look at those individuals. Kids, they have to look at a kid that another kid that may have been in that situation, that doesn't have a father, mom and dad strung out on drugs or in jail, and they're in the ghetto, they're in the projects, they're on welfare, whatnot, and they just see they just see tragedy all around them. There's another kid out there that has gone through the same thing, that and they have prevailed. They have persevered, I should say. They have made it. That's the hope. Because when we come hopeless, that's when we expire, because we feel like there's no need to live anymore. I'm a big boxing. I love boxing. When Customato, he was a trainer for many many years. And when he met Mike Tyson, he was old in age. It's like he gave him more hope to live. Um,
yeah.
and that's what we need. My coach, I had a coach. When I met him old, and he was old in age when he started training me, and it's like I gave him hope. And so that's what we need more on this planet Earth.
Mm,
We need more hope, and we need to have kids to give their life to God. People need to give their life to God, because that's where the eternal peace is going to happen. That's where true peace is going to happen. While here we're here on earth, and it's a process. It's a journey. It's going to be it's a fight because the world what the world puts out and what the world puts out is it's like when kids adults are comparing, like you're never good enough. You're never good enough, and God says you're always enough. And I've had friends, and I met people, just traveling. They're like, well, Ty, when I get my life right with God, when I get my life self together, then I'll go to God. And I'm like, no, God wants you to come jacked up, messed up, in every which kind of way. He wants you now because He's going to clean all of that up.
Yeah.
He's gonna get you right, and so hope is a big one. Hope is a big thing for me. Is to inject more hope on this planet.
I think it's really amazing that through all of this, you're still in relationship with God and you're at peace. It doesn't mean that there isn't challenges, and I think that's really the amazing part of sharing your story is that you are going to continue to face challenges, but it's a lot easier and a different path that you'll go through when you face those with God. And I know that you and I have spent hours just talking about our faith and how it's impacted our lives, but it's hard for me to imagine facing some of the challenges that I've faced and listening to your story to face those without God, without love. You were fortunate that some seeds of people showed you that there was a different path, that showed you love, that gave you hope. But we should never really be without hope. And you've talked about studying the Bible and Scripture, and as we're moving through here, I'd love you to share maybe one of your favorite scriptures and tell us what that means.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite scriptures is Romans 8:28. That God works. I'm gonna actually get it so I can read it verbatim. And God pretty much is God works all things out for the good. And I look at every situation that occurred in my life, and then I felt that at times like, man, I'm like, how am I going to get out of this situation? It may have been mental, it may have been something mentally I was dealing with, physically, financially, relationship. But when you give it to God, right, you wholeheartedly give it to God, and you truly have faith, and you have this doubt of like, well, what if, and buts, and you alleviate all those things. It's like God is gonna take care of everything, and that's what Romans 8 and 8:28 is my birthday. My birthday is August 28th. So I always remember that scripture, like Romans 8:28, when I'm going through difficult times, and even when I see it, it's crazy because that number is just it's pretty much tattooed in my brain, and I see it on the clock. I see it if I was on a microwave. I see it if I see it anywhere. So I'm driving. To me, it's like that God's reminding me, hey, listen, Ty, I'm gonna work everything out for the good. Don't sweat it. I got you, and that's why I just encourage everyone is that when you are going through a tough spot, which you are going to, this is inevitable because we live in a sinful world. I mean, that's a given, and and people think just because you're a Christian does not mean that you're gonna fall short. You're gonna fall short every single day because we're not perfect. Repentance is extremely important because when we do something wrong, we should repent, not want to do it again. But at times like the human flesh, it is very, very weak. Um, is very weak, and that's why we need our prayer warriors. That's why we need our lifelines, to where we can. It's like this show I was talking about this other day about how to become a millionaire. It's an old TV show, and they give a you're trying to you're trying to narrow down the answer from they give you A through D or whatever, and you can ask the audience, phone a friend, and then my thing is like, hey, when you're having that problem, like pick up the phone, call someone, call your pastor, call like your discipleship group leader, or whoever you're close to in the church that can speak life to you, that can pray for you. I mean, prayerful is powerful and effective, as we know, and and that's what I cling to, and I look for certain people in the Bible that I love. I love Job. Job went through a lot in the Bible,
Yeah.
a lot. That's one of my favorite books in the Bible, is Job. I also one of my favorite scriptures too is Proverbs 3, 5, 6 is lean not to your own understanding. I know and we spoke about this, Melissa, like, at length,
Yeah.
is that when I lean to my own understanding, it's wrong. I'm a hot mess. And so I need to consult. And it's all about who you're consulting with as well. Because if you're consulting with someone that's in the world, you're going to get a worldly answer. But if you're consulting with someone that has a relationship with God, you're going to get a godly answer, and it's going to be the right answer.
Yeah.
And
I think
um,
that that is a big thing, and it's where, who is in your circle, who do you turn to for guidance? And one of the things too that people say, I've been praying, I've been asking for this, but it hasn't happened. God's not listening to me. And you touched base on this a little earlier that things happen in God's timing, not our timing, because we don't have access to all the information. But one of the things that I like to ask people, and I think is helpful as people are growing in their walk and their faith, and especially youth, is how do you deal with a time where you've been praying and people are like, well, God didn't answer, or I didn't get what I want. What is your guidance to those people at those when they're feeling those things?
Well, I'm going to share this. So many years ago, when I was competing as a pro athlete, I would pray to God, God, please let me win this race, please let me win this race. And guess what? I didn't win the race. So I'm just like, man, like what? Like, is God mad at me? No, that God is not mad. It's just that, but first of all, He may not, that it may not, that may not have been in His plans for me to win that race, or it's not time. And so God's time is, like I said, it's impeccable. And subconsciously, what happens to a lot of us is that when we pray for something, it may be like, hey, I want you to heal my loved one, and they don't heal and they pass away. It's like, God's like this horrible person. No, God's not that horrible person. Um, God's plan is always the right plan. It's an amazing plan, and it goes back to having trust and faith in Him, that when like Romans 8:28, that He works all things out for the good. Our life here is a pit stop. And I know we are selfish human beings because we don't want our loved ones to leave. We want what we want. We want this nice car. We want this nice house. We want this job. We want the woman, the man, whatever. We want all this stuff, but and we can pray for it, but that does not mean that God is going to honor our prayers. Because, like I said, that sometimes He's like, no, that's not for you, because it's in the best interest. It's in the best interest for you and your family, because it may put you in a position where you may turn away from Him.
Mm.
And I have to think about that myself. Like the times I pray for something, like, well, what if, like, why didn't He give it to me? Well, He gave it. He may not. It didn't happen because God is protecting me. He's protecting us. And so I just tell people, don't fret, don't get angry, don't blame God, don't subconsciously like you curse God like it's His fault. Like, think about what Job went through. Job went through. I mean, God allowed Satan to strip him of everything, and he never cursed God, never. And I think about that all the time. Like, is that people, people's, their happiness, and I have to tell myself this as well. Like, Ty, your happiness cannot be in your house. It
Right.
cannot be happy. It cannot be in your car. It cannot be in your athletic ability. It cannot be in the whatever money you have in your bank account. It can't even be in your spouse. Can't be in your kids. Your happiness has to be in having a relationship with God and putting Him first, because we know God is a jealous God. He's a very very jealous God, and when He wants to sit you down, He's going to sit you down. And I've been set down a lot because I have tried to do it my way. That's what I said. Like, that's what God. That's what He put. I mean, God's amazing. Like, He says, lean not to your own understanding, because God knows that your understanding is not right, and
Yeah. I think
so
too,
it's
and growing and going through these challenges, walking through these fires is really where we come to, at some point, you lay everything bare and say, okay, God, I can't do this alone. I can't even do this with a zillion other people's support. The only way I can get through this is just to leave this with you. And I read a few weeks ago in one of my devotionals that, the scripture tells us and God tells us to leave our burdens with Him. But if
yes.
we truly have done that, then we shouldn't be anxious. So when you're praying about something and turning it over to God, I think you stay in that place until your anxiety is gone because you can't still be anxious about something that you've left with the Lord. And that little simple test to me is if I'm still anxious, then I haven't really let it go. And I think that throughout your life, Tyree, you've had to face so many decisions and challenges, both just in your day to day life, in your sport, and everything that you're doing. But you've made the decision really to stay in the game, like to not give up on hope. And through this all, so many times you could have made a different decision, but you tried. Doesn't mean you did it every single time, but you tried to do the right thing and you keep trying to do the right thing. And throughout these challenges, sometimes it's a walk in the park, and some days it's a little bit more challenging, as you shared today. But
Well, you have to you
mhm,
have to think about something too. I don't mean to cut you off. Is that I look at, because I'm a very observant person, and that's how I've learned a lot. I mean, even from little things of just eating with the right utensils and stuff like that, and silverware, going out to dinner as I was a youngster. I'm like, what do you do? Like, I know I was never taught a lot of things, so I observed and just listened to people, and just been willing to be able to not be prideful and to be able to soak up the right information. But what I was gonna say is that what makes me feel sad, and I think about is I see a lot of athletes, pro athletes. They have done amazing things in their career, right? And and then when they pass away, is I always think about, did they give their life to God?
mm,
Not to say they were going to be perfect, but did they give their life to God? Because you can put up statues everywhere. You can have all the Hall of Fame inductions, and you can accomplish all these great things, right? But when you don't have a relationship with God, it means nothing. God cares. At the end of the day, let's just be honest, right? Let's be honest. God does not care about my world championship gold medals. He doesn't care about the NFL. He doesn't care about if I had a stat. They put up statues of me. He doesn't care about no money. He doesn't care about the house. He doesn't care about any of those things. What he cares about is, did you have a relationship with? Did you have a relationship with me? Do you have a relationship with me? And that's that's what's important, because there's so many people, they believe that I have time, I have time, I have time. Oh, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next month, so on and so on. But and then they expire, and then they meet God. Just being nice, is just being, say, I'm a nice person. I give to the homeless, and I give to the homeless, pay my bills on time. I've never cheated. I've never done this and that. That's not good enough. You have to have a true relationship with God, and you have to give your life to God, and you express that,
right.
and you have to live that. And that's what I've always think about when I see, hear about an athlete passing, a celebrity passing, whatever. I mean, people pass in general, but these public figures, that I'm like, man, like, they have accomplished so much in this world. Like, they have this worldly legacy, right?
Yeah.
God does not care about it, and I can't emphasize this enough. God cares nothing about worldly legacy. It means nothing to him. Doesn't matter if you're a billionaire, millionaire, you own like five Fortune 500 companies, whatever. You won all the gold medals, the Super Bowl titles, whatever it may be. He doesn't care about that. All he cares about is, did you give your life to me?
Yeah. Well, Tyree, I think that's an amazing place for us to wrap up for today. And that's really about what you and I have been talking, and we have other things that we'll share together and announce at a later time. But it is really about your relationship with God, and as you and I talked about, that's part of our purpose and why we're, planning on doing some more things together, is to help bring people love and knowledge
Yes,
into the Lord. So I just wanted to thank you really for joining me today, and look forward to
yes,
our next adventure together. And
yes.
just thank you so much. And well, I'm Melissa Mahler, and this has been People, Purpose, Impact.